Hey everybody. Yeah, I know. This has started an hour late. In my defense, I actually was ready at 7. In fact, I was ready before 7. But by 7 o'clock, I had everything set up. My problem was working with Google stuff. Now, somebody on YouTube pretty much told me, why don't I just work with Twitch? And you know what? I'm really starting to think that maybe that's what I should be doing. But this is what happened. I originally wasn't planning on having this hangout down here in the living room with my main computer. I wanted to do this upstairs because there was a lot of stuff going on down here. You can probably see in the background my family's just lounging in the living room. You know, they're doing their thing, and I know some people don't want to see all that background stuff going on. People getting up, eating, doing all that type of stuff. And there was like video games blasting up the TV, so I'm like, let me do this upstairs. Problem is, I only have 2 ways of being able to get online upstairs. Either with my old crappy Dell laptop or my phone. And I wanted to do this with my phone.
Why didn't you use the Chromebook?
The Chromebook is screwed up. I don't even want to get started with what's wrong with the Chromebook. But anyway, I wanted to do this with my phone. And the phone has an excellent camera. It's, you know, it's an HTC One, the M8 model. It's perfect. There's just one problem. Google, in their infinite wisdom, decided that you cannot do Hangout Live with mobile. Even if you have the the YouTube app, and you can upload videos with it, you can even record with it. Actually, they got rid of the recording feature with YouTube. Now you can only upload with it, so you have to record the video separately and then upload it. Again, smart move, Google. But you cannot do live Hangouts through the YouTube app on a phone or any other mobile device. The only way you can do that is if you use the Hangout app, and unfortunately the Hangout app does not work with my Sword Sage account. It only works with my private real name account, which I didn't want to broadcast everywhere, even though anybody can find out my real name easily, but whatever. The point is, I wanted to do it under Sword Sage. It wouldn't let me. So after fighting with my phone and then fighting with the Dell laptop for almost an hour, I finally said, screw it, and just decided to do it down here. So I apologize if you guys are turned off by the fact that I'm doing this in my living room with the family in the background. So there are gonna be times people are gonna get up, there's gonna be noise. I can't help it. I tried doing this upstairs. Google and my devices wouldn't let me. I had to use my computer. So, and I'm also waiting for people. Why is this the same? Something else that's frustrating me. I wanted to set up a question answer feature on here with the chat, and once again, Google decided that this isn't going to work. So the QA is disabled for some weird reason. So the only way you guys are going to be able to give me any questions is to do it directly under the video itself. Like if you guys are watching this through YouTube right now, in the comment section, that's where your questions are going to have to go, because I am not going to see them on the side like I normally do when I set up the Q&A. The Q&A is disabled. I've tried so many ways to get that freaking thing to work. That was something else I was doing in this past hour. Won't work. You know, to the guy who said that, you know, I should be doing this with Twitch, I am seriously considering just doing this with Twitch from now on, because this is Google Hangouts just is really frustrating the hell out of me. It's like every time I try to do something with it, something new screws up. Every time. Every time it's something different that screws up. But I didn't want to start this out on a complaint and on a rant. This is supposed to be a Q&A. And I'm supposed to be getting my $15 level Patreon guys in here. So far, I only have one dude. I'm hoping that the other guys have gotten the message to Patreon already, so they have the link so that they can get in. If you guys are watching this and you didn't get the link, let me know either through a PA or send it to me under the comment section or something. Just let me know somehow, or send me a message to Patreon and I will get the link to you somehow, so you can get in on this. Everybody else, feel free to leave your questions under there. But I've been yapping long enough. I do have one person in here, and it is good old Demo Man Chaos. You guys, of course, probably know him through YouTube. Say hello, man.
Hello, man. My jokes are bad, I know.
So how have you been doing?
Kind of meh. Played through Quake 2, and if anyone's played that, you know all the enemies are made entirely of nope. They're oof.
Oh, and I'm already getting questions. Okay.
I see 4 comments.
All right. So I'm going to get started with the first question. And it is by, and I hope I don't mispronounce your name. Please forgive me if I do. Adorare Hewitt. Adorare. If I butchered it, I'm really sorry. But he asks, what was my first experience getting into the world of martial arts? And how has it affected my life in the larger picture so far? How has it affected my life overall? My first experience getting into the world of martial arts, I mean, the thing that influenced me to want to do martial arts anyway was, of course, what influenced so many other people, movies. The first time I saw a Shaw Brothers Kung Fu movie, my father had, I'm from New York. I'm from New York City. And way back when 42nd Street was the original grimy 42nd Street, they used to have these little theaters that you used to go in there and you could pay like $5 to $7. You can get, and on that one ticket, you can watch 3 Kung Fu movies in a row, or more, depending on, or less, depending on which theater it was. And my father one day brought us into there, and we watched 3 really awesome Kung Fu movies in a row. And my life was over at that point. I wanted to do all the stuff that was going on in those movies. But I didn't really get to train properly until I was really in high school. And even then, it was kind of like, half-assed. I did what I like to call trading card martial arts. Like, by then, I knew how to do a few little moves here and there. And what I used to do was hook up with other high school kids who actually had proper training. And I'm like, okay, I'll show you how to do this if you show me how to do that. I'll do this, or I'll be your punching bag if you show me how to do that. And so through that, I was able to pick up a few tricks here and there, but nothing cohesive. And it wasn't until I was around 19 years old, I hooked up with a dude named Ismail. Now, that guy was properly trained, and he was the one who first really showed me what martial arts was all about. He was classically trained, and he put me through hell for 3 years. A hell that I appreciate, but it was like, that's when I really learned what training was all about. Like, going into the stances, getting your legs kicked out from under you because you weren't standing properly, sparring, things like that. He's the one who first showed me, like, no, this is what martial arts is. This is what Kung Fu is. You're supposed to defend people, fight people. He was a little nuts, but I love the guy. And it was from that point on that, I was really hardcore into it. I've always wanted to get into martial arts. I'd always appreciated it, the culture of it and all that. And I was really attracted to the Chinese arts, obviously. And after my training with him, after he really put my stuff together, that's when I fully understood how these things are supposed to work, what fighting really is. And it was also because he taught me with a very practical mindset that I have the mindset that I do these days, where I don't really go in for a lot of the gobbledygook and mysticism that a lot of people go into. How it's affected my life? Well, for one thing, a lot of these videos I wouldn't be putting up if it wasn't for that. But also, to be honest, martial arts has been affecting my life for a very long time in many different ways. One way simply because I've always appreciated it, from like everything from training to reading about it to watching Kung Fu movies to even playing fighting games. It's affected so many different facets of my life. Even my love of swords is something that started for me when I was very, very young, and it's something I've always wanted to do. It's affected, it's kind of hard to say. Like, most people, when they say that something's affected their life, they talk about how it, dominates certain aspects of their life, or how it makes them do certain things in a certain way or look at the world in a certain way. But it's hard for me to answer like that, because so many aspects of my life kind of just blend into each other anyway. Like, I could say, for instance, oh, martial arts has given me a certain philosophical outlook on life. But that wouldn't be true, because I've always had a philosophical outlook on life. It just blends in with the martial arts. But I've always had philosophical debates with people. I've always, wondered about, trying to look at deeper aspects of things. That's something that I've always done. The martial arts is just another facet of it. So I guess that's the best way I can answer that question. How it's affected my life is simply that it's another aspect of it. It's just another piece of who I am, I guess. And it comes out in different ways. Like I express myself through, my research and studying, the little bit of study I can do of martial arts. And basically I express myself through martial arts, and martial arts expresses itself through me in different ways, along with all the other things that I do and engage in. So hopefully that answered your question. Okay, Joao Sturza, no, Sturza? Joao Sturza. Again, if I mess up your name, I am so sorry. My opinion on Jeet Kune Do. I think I've answered that a long time ago, but that was a long time ago, years ago. My opinion of Jeet Kune Do is basically that I think Jeet Kune Do was basically the sum total of Bruce Lee's understanding of martial arts at the time that he taught it. If someone was to ask me, is it an effective art? Well, yeah, I think it's effective. I like how direct it is. I like how no nonsense it is. The problem with it, however, is, and I know what I'm about to say is going to sound kind of controversial, and this is my own opinion, okay? And this is coming from somebody who's not a Jeet Kune Do exponent. The problem with Jeet Kune Do is that it's somewhat, what's the right word I can say for this? It wasn't completely finished. And that makes it sound like it's half-assed. No, it's not. But Bruce Lee's understanding of martial arts constantly kept changing throughout his life. And unfortunately, he was killed in his prime when his ideas on martial arts were still in flux. I mean, the core ideas of what he thought about martial arts, yeah, that didn't change. Like he always thought, being simplistic, being efficient, getting rid of the flim-flam, getting rid of like dogmatic views of martial arts. I mean, that was always with him. And his particular talents and expertise on being able to do the simplest thing possible, the most effective, most powerful thing possible in that moment. He was able to bring that to fore. But his ideas kept changing. I mean, and the reason why I can say that is because if you take a student of his from when he first started teaching his arts, and then you go to his later students before he died, they do them very differently. And you can easily say, well, that's because they're different people. One person fights one way, one person fights the other way. And that's true. That is definitely true. That's part of the reason why we have so many different Kung Fu styles today, and even a certain style will still have all these different subsets. Like Bagua, you got Yin Fu style, Cheng style, all these different Wudon style, all these different styles because people have their own take on it. However, the way Bruce Lee taught one student changed later on when he had a different understanding of martial arts later on, and the way he tailored it to that student. The way people's fighting, like you even see one person's fighting stance different than the other person's. The way one person delivers his kick is different than the other person's, and so on and so forth, because his ideas kept changing. And unfortunately, he got killed while his ideas were still changing. And a lot of people today who practice Jeet Kune Do are left trying to fill in those blanks, or left trying to put their own spin on it, which is why now instead of saying, oh, I teach, if you notice a lot of the really good teachers, like Dan and Sanso, for instance, he says he doesn't really teach Jeet Kune Do, he teaches the Jeet Kune Do concepts, like the core theories of the art, the core principles of the art are what he teaches, and you just take those and adapt it to your own style or your own arts, which I think is a pretty good way to teach it. In fact, a lot of Kung Fu styles are actually taught that way. Where it's like, in fact, a lot of styles were born that way, where you took core ideas or core theories of one style and then use it to make something else. So Jeet Kune Do is basically a fighting art that's still kind of in flux. And because of that, and also because Bruce was, he died, so young, to this day, you are still going to have people arguing over, well, which version is the real version? Who gets to, who's more efficient? Who deserves to, carry on the name? And it's a mess. It can be a mess. Let's still go back to a simplest answer that I can give you guys. Do I think it's an effective art? Yeah. Do I like it? Yes. But I think that if you're looking for, like, if it's something that you're looking into practicing, be aware that there's going to be a lot of different ideas and different concepts thrown at you, if you want to get into Jeet Kune Do, and it may or may not be your thing, because again, it was sort of incomplete. Bruce was still thinking about how to structure it. Hell, I even read somewhere once that he was even kind of regretting coming up with it in the first place. But don't quote me on that. It was something that I read a long time ago, and I don't want to just say that without having a source. So, but yeah, his ideas were constantly changing, and then he died while he was still thinking about it and still developing it. And plus, it was also, a lot of it was his own expression of the martial arts itself. And it's kind of, your own expression is your own expression. Your own style is your own style. You can't really teach that to somebody else. So that makes it even harder for somebody to try to pick up what you were doing, you know? So, yeah, I know, rather convoluted answer. Sorry, but that is pretty much what I think of it. Okay. Odora Hewitt asked also, what do I do for a living, and what would I like to do for a living, and if it's practical in my mind? This is going to sound funny to some people, considering that I'm in the martial arts and stuff. I am a security guard. That is currently my profession. I am a security guard. Doesn't pay all that great. In fact, that's part of the reason why right now finances are not very good. There's a reason why I set up Patreon. It's partly because I really, 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 really need the finances right now. But yeah, that's what I do. I'm a security guard. Been doing that for quite some time. What I would like to do for a living? You know, to be perfectly honest with you, when I was younger and I was still going to college, I wanted to teach. I wanted to teach history. Before I ran out of money going to college, I was taking up history, and I was also taking up philosophy. And I wanted to get a degree in history and philosophy with a minor in education, so I'd be able to teach history in high school. It's part of the reason why some of you guys have been with my channel for a very, very long time. If you've noticed, some of my older politically charged videos have a lot of, me quoting history and stuff, because I was taking it in college. Throat's dry. But it's, these days, as much as I, really like the concept of being able to teach, in high school and help teaching kids how to think, the education system in the United States right now is fucked. I'm sorry, I don't know any other way to, I know that's blunt, I know that might insult some people, but right now the education system in the US is fucked. And I'm not just simply talking about, the fact that, so many kids these days are coming out of these schools unprepared and all this type of stuff. The way the schools themselves are structured and how the education itself is being taught is completely screwed up in the US. And it's even harder on the teachers who are being graded for, the students' performance, but they're not given the proper tools to make sure that the students succeed. And no, having a bunch of standardized testing thrown at these kids and teaching them just to memorize the answers to pass the test, that is not educating children. We're not even teaching kids to think anymore, which is the primary thing that an education should be teaching a child. Yes, give them proper skills. Yes, give them, the rudimentary stuff, foundation, like, being able to read, understand mathematics and such like that. But they really need to also know how to think and how to properly assess information given to them. That's like rare these days, unless you happen to be in a high-level school, and even that, things are changing. And with these really messed up curriculums and the extra ridiculous pressure that they're giving the teachers, while at the same time slashing their pay and benefits, there really isn't much of a reason to be a teacher here. I mean, as horribly as that sounds, if it's something that if you actually want to educate kids properly, you're going to be going up against a brick wall going through the school system. And I know me. I'm not someone who would be taking that line down. I'd be getting into a lot of trouble arguing with a lot of people, and I didn't need that extra stress. So as much as I would like to teach, let's just put it this way. Someone close to us was a former teacher. And when I told him that I was originally going to start teaching, he immediately was like, no, you don't want to do that. And he was a teacher. And he got out. And he's a really nice guy, really, very gentle soul, very nice person. And even he was like, you don't want to, not here in this country. So, and so move on to the next question, but I just wanted to finish up. The other thing that I would like to do for a living that I don't think I have the skills for it yet is write. Believe it or not, it has been a long time since I've done it because I've not really had the time lately, but I write as a hobby every now and then. I write fiction. and something that I've wanted to, a dream of mine for the longest time, was to get published. I've written short stories. I've even written a couple of books, or a couple other books that are not even fully finished yet, but I don't think they're up to standard. Until I'm comfortable with my writing skills, I'm not even thinking about trying to publish them yet. But that would be my dream, to be perfectly honest with you. My dream is to write. Will I ever do it? I don't know. But that's actually, if I'm going to be talking about a dream. Surprising that
I need to get back on my writing stuff.
I was going to ask you also, how's your writing going since I brought it up?
Yeah, I think I'm on. I know I broke page 60 on the Google Docs thing, but it's been quite some time. I mean to get back to it.
It's probably surprising a lot of people that martial arts didn't kind of feature into what I would like to do for a living, but I practice martial arts more for myself, and
Right? I think we're having technical difficulties here. Well.
What the hell? Hello? What the hell? Yeah, and it's because my computer went to sleep and Hangouts decided, you know what? No, ain't gonna work. Where did I cut off at? Freaking Google. Freaking Google. I apologize, guys, for all these mistakes. When I cut off, what was I saying?
Something about martial arts not featuring into things.
Yeah, also I was basically saying is that it might be surprising some people that what I wanted to do for a living really didn't have much to do with martial arts. But whatever. I practice martial arts for myself. That's probably why. And I definitely don't think I'm qualified to teach anybody anything. So that's probably why it doesn't really feature into what I want to do for a living. Though it would be cool, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
If I had the skills of Pai Mei and I teach other people to be little Pai Meis, that would be awesome. Anyway, let me move on to the next one. Jake C. Wolf. What's up? I'm glad you were finally able to make it to the Hangout, and I again apologize for starting so late. Technical issues. You asked me what Dark Souls series weapon, all magic BS related to Messiah would I want to own. Yours is the Silver Knight Straight Sword. Good choice! I love that freaking weapon. It was one of the weapons that I used in several of my builds when I went through Dark Souls 1. My favorite swords in Dark Souls 1, the Balder Side Sword, of course, the Silver Knight Straight Sword, and believe it or not, just a simple old scimitar. The scimitar I just like the moveset of it. I also like the Balder Side Sword is pretty much the longsword. The longsword in Dark Souls has always been a really reliable weapon. I don't like how they changed it in Dark Souls 2. It was perfect in Dark Souls 1. But yeah, those were my favorite. Oh no, and damn it, the Velka rapier. Really like that one. I wish it had a couple more cuts. It's mostly stabby because it's a thrusting sword. But I happen to like that weapon. It's good for certain situations. It also looks very close to one of these, which is why I liked it so much. Now, as far as Dark Souls 2 goes, there were a lot of weapons in there that All right, I'm kind of saying this a little too early because remember, I still got my Dark Souls 2 New Game Plus run that I'm doing where I'm going to be getting deeper into some of the things I like and don't like about the game. But to kind of do a little bit of a spoiler, I guess, one of the things I don't like about Dark Souls 2 are some of the weapons that they came up with in there. It is obvious. A lot of people blame Tonimura for what happened to Dark Souls 2, and it really isn't his fault. He was the guy they sent in to salvage the mess. Okay? It was the guy before him. Shibuya something. I can't believe I keep forgetting his name when he sparked so much of my ire. But it was that guy, that Monster Hunter guy. A lot of what we do not like about DS2, we can pretty much blame him for. In fact, there's the reason why they brought Tony Mora in was because they didn't like what this guy was doing. And I'm going to get into that into the series. Son's yelling, I'm sorry. But one of the things I didn't like about his stuff is, if you've ever, Skull talked about this. Well, he pointed this out. If you've ever seen some of the really ridiculous weapons that that he likes bringing up, some of those really ridiculous weapons that he points out come from the Monster Hunter series. And you can see some of that influence in Dark Souls too. Some of the weapons in there are just, what were they thinking?
Anvil on a stick.
Yeah, like the anvil. Well, then again, the anvil on a stick kind of cracks me up. It's still a stupid weapon, but at the same time, it's kind of, imagine like if you make a strength build where you're running around with 2 freaking anvils in either hand slamming things. That'd be kind of funny.
It's kind of like that revolver cylinder hammer in Monster Hunter. I think it's Freedom Unite. A friend of mine actually used that thing. It's so goofy that it's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, let me hurry up with this. But yeah, Dark Souls 2, my favorite weapon is the one that I have my Nathaniel character using right now, the Blue Flame. And I like it simply because, and it was one of the really good ideas in Dark Souls 2, having a weapon that also works as a catalyst. I really hope they keep that for DS3. I really do. I'm having a bad feeling they won't, but I personally thought it was a really good idea to be able to cast spells with a weapon. And they balance it out by not making it the strongest catalyst you can get. Like if you're a pure sorcerer, it's a nice little thing to have. But if you're looking for throwing out more powerful spells, it's not going to be the end-all be-all. But if you're someone who's making a hybrid build like I liked making, it's perfect. And I love weapons like that. The only thing I didn't like about the Blue Flame was its moveset. That upward swing thing and no thrusts was kind of dumb. But I made do with it. Anyway, let's get off that. But yeah, those are my favorite weapons. Smith Black asks me if I'm an atheist. Yes and no. The simplest answer is yes. That's the simplest answer I can give. And the reason why I would say that yes is because if you're going to be asking me, do I believe in any of the religions that are on the planet right now? No. No. No, 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 and no. There's way too much out there disproving a lot of the stuff that people are believing in for me to follow suit and believe along with them. Sorry, no. No. If you've seen any of my older videos, you already know what I think about these religions. Now, and also, and then if people say, well, if you don't like religion, do you believe in God? Not really, no. Let's put it this way. The common concept that people have of a God that, you know, is this conscious being holding the world or the universe in the palm of his hand, and somehow he's able to pinpoint the exact thing that these humans are doing way in this tiny little corner over here. No, sorry, no. That's just ridiculous if you just sit back and think about it for like a minute. Now, if you're going to be asking me, do I think that there's some type of like energy that we're all a part of, to simplify my thinking on this, because if I'm going to start talking about my concepts of God, we're going to be here all night. If you're going to be asking me, are we a part of something that might be larger than ourselves, and it's just simply something like a collective consciousness or an energy, if you will, then I'll say yeah. But I'm not going to go around saying that it's the gospel truth, because I don't have any proof of it. It's just an idea that I have. That's it. As far as trying to worship it or coming up with religion, no, got the wrong guy. So hopefully that answers that question. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can try to find some more of what is my favorable form of apocalypse. This comes from Dow234. What is my favorite form of apocalypse? I know a lot of people are into the whole zombie thing. It just drags out for too long. You need something spectacular. If you want to come up with an apocalypse, you need something like, just like, you need something epic. So if I would have to pick a favorite form, I mean, maybe it would be like, you know, the whole robot apocalypse thing, simply because, you know, the war would be insane, but that's cliche. And it's a little bit too close to, you know, my, the one joke I like doing where I said for 17 cents a day, you two can contribute to my mechanical horror fund, where when I pull everybody's money together, I'll create a giant Gundam-style mech that will just wreak havoc among the stupider aspects of the world. What would be my favorite apocalypse? I don't know. Let's just say the Earth suddenly just gets out of orbit and crashes into the sun. How about that? Talk about going out with a blaze of glory. There, that'll be my answer for that one. I'm sorry, it's a late Sunday night and I came back from work a little while ago. My brain's getting fuzzy. Gilgamesh asks me, can't speak tonight, what other martial art would I like to learn if I could? That's a, man, I'm sorry the camera is kind of dumb on you guys, sorry. And man, it is really dark. I am really sorry for that. I'm going to change camera angle. There, I look better now?
A little.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys.
It looks like the camera was trying to look at that creepy little mask you have in the corner.
I like that mask. That's my son screaming again. There's so many martial arts I would like to learn, you know? Right now I'm trying to focus on Baguazhang. But actually, you know what art I would really love to focus on as a good subset? Piguazhang. Piguazhang fascinates me. It's another Chinese martial art, and there's Piguazhang and Piguachuan. It's pretty much the same art. It's just one of them focuses on palms, the other one focuses on the fist, but the movements are pretty much the same. It's an older one that's been reconstructed. A lot of people are like, it's an old art. Well, yeah, it's an old art, but then people lost it and they had to rebuild it. A lot of martial arts are like that. But the thing I really like about it is that it has these really like open, long-ranged motions that hit like a ton of bricks. Like you just slam your forearms and your palms into the opponent and just slam them into the ground. And it looks gorgeous in practice. Like when someone's practicing the movements, it looks graceful, it looks beautiful, it looks very almost stereotypical long fist-like. But then when you see it in action, it looks freaking brutal. You just like slam people to the ground or like just throw these really powerful blows, you know, just slamming them into the guy's, you know, chest and head. And it's just like, ooh, oh God. I really would love to learn that one, but I don't see how I'm going to be able to learn that one properly. Not where I live. I was lucky to learn the Bagua that I do know, but there's no Pigua guys around here. So. But yeah, I would love to learn that one, to be honest. That would be an art that would supplement what I like doing very well. And another one I would love to learn if I ever had the time and the mental capacity to learn so many different martial arts is Chuojiao, or poking foot. It's an older Chinese art that focuses a lot on leg movements, and it has these really interesting off-angle kicks, and also has this kind of rapid fist movement that is really interesting to watch in action. You don't really see it much nowadays. There are certain places in China where they still practice it hardcore, but it's not a very popular art. It is one that's married into other ones. Like if you study Fengxi boxing or Tongbei boxing, they throw a little bit of Chuojiao in there. Certain Shaolin forms have thrown a bit of Chuojiao in there. A lot of Chuojiao tends to mix in with a lot of long fist anyway. Cha fist is another one I would love to fully learn. Like I know like a little bit of that, but that's simply because everybody knows a little bit of Cha. If you studied Road 4, if you've ever studied any form of Chinese Kung Fu or long fist, and they taught you something called Road 4, you know a little bit of Cha fist. But the complete style itself is really beautiful to watch. And it's kind of unique in that it's actually a Muslim style. Not many people know that. It's in China. It's a Chinese Kung Fu, but it's a Muslim style. There are Muslims in China, believe it or not. Going on to another question. I am trying to... Volpes Agnobor D CCC I'll just call you Volpes. Volpes asks, what do I prefer about Chinese swords as opposed to European or Japanese swords? And also, what are my opinions on European swords? Let me answer the second thing. My opinions on European swords are that they're freaking awesome. I like European swords. I really do. I don't really know how to use them, but I really, really like them. I love the fact that you can see, at least if you know what you're looking for, you can kind of look at the weapon and get a sense of what, I guess, the designers, and well, designers makes it sound too simplistic. The people who are using the sword, or the people who made the weapon the way they did, you can kind of get an idea of what they had in mind for its use. They're a lot of them, they're just honest weapons, they're sturdy weapons, they're elegant weapons, and the usage of them is just, I like European weapon styles. I really do. That's one of the reasons why I like watching Skalgrim's videos so much, or School Gladiatorius stuff. I find that stuff fascinating. Again, I don't know how to do it, but I love watching it. I love learning about it. European swords, I think, are freaking cool. And my favorite European sword, before anyone asks, I kind of already gave you guys a hint when I was talking about the Dark Souls weapons, the longsword. Probably because it's kind of close to the weapon I like using. It's not exactly the same, but I just like the longsword because it's a weapon that is just kind of a universal, good, effective, efficient, no nonsense weapon. And it's good for what it was made for. Now, what is it I prefer about Chinese swords? Part of it is simply because, well, it was the art that I practice Chinese martial arts, so naturally I'm going to be using Chinese weapons. And there is something about the Chinese longsword, well, the Chinese jian, that I really like. For one thing, I just like how elegant it is. I tend to go for elegant designs. I like things that are kind of graceful, elegant looking. That's my own personal thing. Like, I know some people like really big, heavy, mean, kick-ass, big, stonking, huge, brutal weapons. I've never been that guy. Some people, they want to have like the huge freaking Conan swords, or gigantic axes, or big spiky maces. That never really appealed to me, even though I know those freaking things can be effective. I mean, you get hit by those things once, you're not getting up. But I tend to like kind of elegant designs, elegant weapons, and the Chinese straight sword, just the look of it and the use of it appeals to me. Now, having said that, usually when people think of the Chinese jian and they think of elegant movements, they think of a lot of the really dancey stuff that people generally think of when they see that weapon, and that's not how a weapon is supposed to be used. Yes, there are certain circular motions that are known to be used with the sword, but ultimately the jian is a cut and thrust sword. You're supposed to cut and thrust with it. You're not supposed to play around with it. You're supposed to twirl with it. You're not supposed to do crazy things like rub it against your body and do a pose. No, you're supposed to cut and thrust with it. And the forms, the Chinese sword forms, there's like hundreds of Chinese sword forms out there. But the ones that people who are interested in fighting actually respect, you can count on one hand. And I noticed those particular ones are no nonsense when it comes to the techniques being used in those forms. They're just very straightforward. You cut and you thrust. There are a couple of motions in there that look a little, weird to people who look at more direct styles, but the way they're employed is still practically done. So, yeah. But yeah, that's what I really like about the Chinese swords. They're just elegant looking weapons, and they complement how I fight. So I've gravitated toward those weapons. And then we get into Japanese weapons. Now, I've already talked about this before in other videos. I do not dislike the katana. I actually like, the katana as long as it's not overdone. There's some certain designs for katanas out there which just make me roll my eyes. But I think the weapon is good for what it is and for how it's supposed to be used. Hell, the weapon was based off of a Chinese design anyway, so how can I not like the sword? The only thing I do not like about katanas is the fandom around it. There's a lot of people coming with a lot of nonsense. I've discussed this ad nauseum with Skull and other people. There's a lot of BS about the katana that kind of turns my stomach. I have nothing against the weapon itself, and I think the weapon is pretty cool, and I think how it's actually supposed to be employed is pretty cool. But it's not the end-all to be-all weapon. And I'm really getting tired of people saying it is. It's not. In fact, if I'm going to be brutally honest, If I could not use a dian, and somebody said, well, you need to use a sword, but we ain't got no Chinese weapons for you, but I got a long sword here and I got a katana, I'm picking up the long sword, guys. I'm sorry. I'm being brutally honest here. Another question Utter Hugh had asked again, what are some examples I have of some more complete or effective martial arts? Since I mentioned that Jeet Kune Do was incomplete, and additionally, what is my opinion of mixed martial arts? Okay. See, this is one of the reasons why I didn't really want to say Jeet Kune Do was incomplete, because it makes it sound like if you learn Jeet Kune Do, you're gonna always have holes in your fighting technique. That's not really, that's not the impression I want to give. If you're trying to learn Jeet Kune Do and you're learning it from somebody who knows what they're doing, like say you learn somebody, like let's say you learn from Danan Santio or any of the other guys or somebody who trained under them, you'll be able to defend yourself if that's what you care about and if that's what you're into. You're gonna get effective techniques, especially if you learn the Danan Santio way, which is all about the concepts, and you use those concepts as building blocks to build your own personal style. You'll be able to do fine for yourself. But when I'm talking about complete, I mean like having a fully formed theory, combat theory, and building on that to the point where you've covered just about all the aspects you think you're going to be able to cover. And even if you haven't, the individual student will be able to do that on their own. Jeet Kune Do was just about there, but Bruce was, again, he was still developing some of his ideas and some of them were changing. And that's why I'm saying that, and since he was changing it, we don't know if the Jeet Kune Do that we got because he died is what he wanted. And that's kind of in the air. But something like, say, Bagwajang or Cha Fist or Hungar or, dare I say it, Wing Chun or Choi Le Fo or many other styles, you've had several years of development with those. There's a certain flavor to the forms or to the style. There's a combat theory behind it that they built their whole art around. And as long as you're learning under somebody who isn't just dancing with it, they can make it work. They have a complete curriculum. Like they have their basics, their ways of training, their fundamental training, their advanced training, their intermediate training, all that, all the way up to a complete fighter. And then they got weapons and all that other stuff. That to me is a complete style. And as far as what makes it effective, well, if you can use it in combat, that's the test of any real martial art. Can you use it? If you can't, and now granted, I mean, there are some people out there who are training in effective martial arts who can't use it because they didn't train properly. But if the art itself, if the style that you're learning itself, is it geared toward fighting, or if it's only geared toward a little bit of an aspect of fighting, but it only works under certain situations, or you can't seem to get it to work properly all the time, then yeah, there's a problem with that. And that's what I would say would be something that's ineffective or incomplete. If you have a core concept that you're working off of, and you're able to build your strategy around that and make it work for yourself, then yeah, you're studying a complete art. Not to linger on this too much longer, but if you're wondering what I mean by like a combat theory and building off of it, well, okay, let's take Wing Chun for instance. And I know Wing Chun there are a lot of people who detract from it and all that and say, oh, it sucks, it's this and that and that and this. For what it's worth, at the end of the day, the combat theory of Wing Chun is simply, look, it's all about close range fighting and fighting from off time angles, and basically it's like you get in close, you trap their arms, and you go in for the kill quickly with short burst punches. And they've built an entire style around that, and when they're able to make that work under the circumstances they want to make it work on, they've made it work. And let's remember, I mean, granted, I'm going to play devil's advocate. Let's remember Bruce Lee. Remember, the guy was kicking ass, and he trained in Wing Chun. His base was Wing Chun. He didn't move away from it, but his base was still Wing Chun. And all the way up until his death, if you look at how he moved, that base was still there. And he was able to pretty much make that thing work. If the base foundation was able to make him an effective fighter, there must have been something to it. And the core combat technique with it was you get in close and you destroy the guy as quickly and as effectively as possible with minimum effort. That's the combat theory behind Wing Chun. And if you've ever seen the way Bruce fought in real life, not necessarily the movies, like actually seen like videotapes of him training with people, if you notice, his whole thing was about speed and getting in close and taking you out like that. He was not there to dance around with you for 10 minutes in the ring. No, he was there to take you down. He gets in close, he closes range with you, and just punches the crap out of you once or twice and you die, or a million times because you saw how fast he was able to throw his blows. But that's what I mean by, complete. There was a combat theory behind it. Bagua Zhang, its combat theory is basically on attack them at their weakest angle. Use circular motions to, build up your power, because there's a lot more power in rotation than there is in just a straight attack. And attack them where they're weak. You do not attack them straight on, you attack them where they're weak. They built a whole style around that. If your art has a theory like this is the way we approach combat, you're off to a good start. Sorry that took so long, because I didn't even get to the part about mixed martial arts. Personally, I think mixed martial arts are awesome. Mixed martial arts is something that mixed martial arts to me was a wake-up call for a lot of people out there who were believing a lot of BS about their fighting techniques. Mixed martial arts is like, for the longest time, people were like just punching air, doing two-man fighting forms with no resistance, not even bothering to spar, and yet they're walking around, oh, I'm a badass, I got a black belt. Then the MMA guys came around and started throwing people to the ground and tying them in knots and beating the living crap out of them and like reminding them what martial arts is for. I'm not trying to, I need to add this on. I need to stress this. I'm not saying that things like, understanding yourself or self-discipline or trying to reach enlightenment or looking at philosophical aspects of your art. I'm not saying these things are wrong. In fact, I think many of these things are valuable for your training, but they should not be the center of your training. At the end of the day, if you're practicing a martial art, even if you're practicing it just for health or just to seek deeper aspects of your life, whatever. If it's a non-combat reason you're practicing a martial art, fine. But at the end of the day, your martial art should still be able to be viable in combat. If it's not, and it's not because it's your fault of bad training, there's something wrong. At the end of the day, can you use it? And the MMA guys, God's bless them. Because they basically brought that back to the fore. Can you use it? I don't care how many belts you got. I don't care how high you can kick. I don't care how beautiful you look dancing around. Can you fight? That is the core, that's the base, the foundation of a martial art. Can you protect yourself with it? Can you throw down? Can you knuckle up? If you can't, there's a problem. Don't call yourself a martial artist if you can't. I'm not even saying that if you lose, but you were at least able to engage in combat, okay, that's okay. We all lose at one point or another. But if you if you don't even speak the language of combat and you're claiming to practice a martial art, there's something wrong. And that's why I love the MMA guys. They brought that back. They forced people to, to readdress that question. And the fakers now, because when you ask them that question, about the MMA guys, F the MMA guys, I practice for deeper reasons. Then you probably don't want to train under that guy, because that probably means you can't. I mean, yeah, I understand. This is going on far too long. But essentially, if somebody says that, look, I know the MMA guys can fight, can you? And a guy tries to dodge the subject, there you go. Anyway, I've been talking about, all right, this is from somebody called Not Me But Another. And he says that I've been talking about classification quite a bit now. I think there's more sides to the topic worth exploring, such as the relationships between styles and their evolution. Okay, and then it cuts off. I'm reading these questions through my email, so sometimes the questions get cut off. So now I gotta go to the actual. Actually, Demo Man, can you see that question?
From Not Me But Another?
Yeah.
Because it says you've been talking about classification quite a bit now. I think there's more sides to the topic worth exploring, such as the relationships between the styles and their evolution. For example, you mentioned how many styles are essentially forms of long fist, or at least contain a lot of it. And I'd like to know more about stuff like that. Okay. Also, for the people who are not familiar with the topic, there might be an audience for videos that simply introduce a list of noteworthy Chinese martial arts styles. You practice Bagua Zhang, one of the most visually beautiful styles I know of. but the only Westerners who know of it are hardcore ATLA fans. My personal favorites, Ba Quan and Pi Guazhong, are only known to those who like arcade fighting games enough to look up what Hakyokuken means
Yeah.
means
Hachiokuken.
before I go on listing interesting styles that are unknown here. I'll claim that typical Westerners pretty much only know Taiji Quan, Wing Chun, and animal styles. Thoughts?
I think that this person's onto something. I actually wanted to like do videos on like maybe short little videos on like talking about different martial arts. I was going to say that there are other people who I think are doing a better job than I am in describing them, but the problem is not many of them actually make videos on YouTube. One, two, you know, you got to do a little bit of hunting to find out about them. So it probably might be a really good idea to kind of go a little bit more into, okay, there's this style. This is what the style is about. There's this style. This style. That's what the style is about. I'm pretty sure, because I'm pretty sure, like, when at least this person I know, they said Pigua, so I'm like, but somebody else who knows. But I do know, and I am quite aware when I make these videos and I happen to mention the names of styles, that there's some people going, what the hell is that? I'm pretty sure, like right now there's 24 people watching this. I would be very surprised if more than 5 people knew what Tongbei was. I would be very surprised if they knew what Tongbei Chuan was. But that's actually a fairly well-known style in China, but you don't really see it here in the West. The Mandarin duck leg, that's a form with special kicks. I bet that's, for many people, that's the first time they've ever heard of that one. There's a lot of stuff out there, and then the styles themselves have many different subsets as well. So, you know, I'm thinking that's a pretty good idea. I probably should at some point go into actually talking about like all the different styles. And also, I mentioned that many styles are essentially forms of long fist, or a lot of long fists. Yeah, I probably should go a little bit more into that. Keep in mind that it's not something that I'm going to be able to do right away, because while there's certain things that I know more than others, I'm still researching this stuff. Some stuff is stuff that I've already researched. Some stuff is stuff that was told to me or taught to me. And there's other stuff that I still am like digging through. And when I say researching, I'm not just like, you know, just, okay, I'm going to go on Wikipedia now, or let me just look something up on Google. No, I'm actually like hunting down books and articles and like, you know, stuff from actual, you know, martial arts teachers or people in China, like Kangge Wu, for instance, Professor Kangge Wu. He's somebody who's actually, his degree and everything else, his profession is researching Chinese martial arts. He's written several books on the subject of how they got started, who are the real originators of the styles, how they developed over the years, what was the context of, you know, their development while being taught, stuff like that. Like actually, you know, researching it on a historical context. And it's not easy to get your hands on. Like, some of the stuff is easy to get your hands on, but a lot of the stuff is also written in Chinese, and I don't know Chinese. So a lot of this stuff I am trying to research and dig up, and thankfully there are some really good English materials. Like, I recently got my hands on this, which anybody who's really interested in Baguazhang and internal arts in general, this is a really good $35 to spend. There was a magazine years ago. It started in 1990 all the way up to 1997, called the Baguazhang Journal. It focused on Baguazhang and its development and the many masters who taught it and those who are teaching it today and their thoughts and the concepts and all that, but it also goes into the history of it, how it was really taught, how it was really trained in. And not only that, but it also brings up the history of Chinese martial arts, period. It was a very good publication, and I remember even leafing through it when I was younger. The fact that you can actually get the entire run of it on CD is freaking awesome. There's a lot of material right now. There's so many videos that are coming out of this. This is the type of stuff I do to try to make these videos, but I want to make sure that before I put these videos out, you know, I actually know something. Or I don't want to just simply be like, I'm just going to throw some video out there of my opinion on this stuff, and it ends up being bullshit. That's why these videos sometimes take a while to come out, because I want to make sure that the information I'm giving you guys is actually correct information. Or if it is my opinion, then at least it's opinion that is backed up by facts or context or historical significance. So yeah, but not even another, yeah, that's a really good idea, and it's something that I think I should be pursuing in the future. If there's anything in particular you guys, as well as this person also wants, let me know. And I will see if I can try to put that out there for you. But that's definitely a really good idea. I like that. Okay. Let's see if there's any other interesting tests. Okay. Trying to look for more questions. Actually, you know what? It would be a lot easier for me to just simply click on the comment section and look there. Gonna sift through here. By the way, Andrew, I know this is my Q&A, but if there's anything else that you want to add to any of these subjects, I mean, you're in the video feed. That's the reason why I wanted the people on Patreon to come in. If they had anything they wanted to add, feel free.
Now, most of the stuff's been Eastern martial arts, which I don't know near enough about to really comment.
Okay.
Well, the next comment above the "not me but another" is from Jake C. Wolf saying, "Sage, what's going on? Sage, Sage!"
It's probably when I got cut out.
Dun, 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 dun. The Megarin asks, "At what age did you start martial arts, and do you believe there's an age limit to starting one?"
Depends on the, okay, I'm going to say that I didn't really officially start practicing martial arts properly until I was 19. If you want to count the years that I just simply dabbled in techniques and stuff like that, then it was around 13, 14 years old. But I don't count that. I mean, yeah, it's like, okay, when I was 13, 14 years old, because of being around other people that knew martial arts, I was able to do things like flying kicks and spin kicks and, you know, basic stuff, punching. Like, that ain't, anybody can learn that. Like, you stare at the TV long enough, you can figure it out, you know? Like, actually properly training where, you know, you got to go through the pain of sitting in a horse stance for several minutes, up to half an hour, maybe an hour, and then having some maniac kick your leg, and if it moves, all right, you got to start all over again. That ain't fun. That's just the type of stuff I did when I was 19 on. Now, do I think there's an age limit? It depends on the art. Now, some of this is based on what I think is, you know, real, you know, like stuff you can verify, and some of it is based on my opinion. Okay, that little kid over there, he's 7. He's teachable. Hell, there's some people who started training in martial arts when they were 3. Granted, they were in China, and China has a different way of raising kids than people in the West, so it's a little bit easier for them to teach them at that age. But generally, there are some people who started learning basic moves when they're 3, 4, 5 years old. Bruce was teaching Brandon when he was barely, like, the minute that kid was able to walk, he had that kid doing this. So you can teach them basic movements. And by 7, you know, when they really are able to start comprehending things, that's a good age to start. Here's the problem. Bodies are still developing at this point. And you have to be careful on how you're training these kids and what you're training them in. Because, one, as their bodies develop, certain things that were easy for them to do when they were younger, they aren't necessarily going to be able to do when they're 14, 15, 16 years old. You know, because bones are still forming, tendons are still forming, you know, things are still kind of pliable. And yeah, you can still keep a high level of flexibility when you get older, but certain ways you move around, like, think about when you were a kid. How much crap you were able to get away with because your body was pretty much like a rubber band. I remember, like, my little brother, for instance, when he was his age, would roll down a flight of stairs and just jump up and run off. Nothing wrong with him. You can't do that when you're a teenager. Not unless you train to be a stuntman or something. So you have to be careful what you're training these kids in. You know, make sure that you're not being too strenuous on them. Whatever it is that the regimen that you're putting them through cannot be too strenuous. And you also have to realize that certain martial arts have certain concepts of combat that they may not necessarily understand. Something like karate or long fist or boxing and stuff like that, they're a little bit easier for a kid to understand. And I'm not saying that because they're simplistic. They're not. They're the concepts behind, like the mechanics behind these arts are very sound and rather complex, and the way they want you to use your body, they move them in ways that people aren't used to. But they're kind of straightforward as well. I mean, a punch is a punch, okay, in these types of arts. Like if you're taking up like a typical long fist school, when you first start training in there, they're teaching you basic punches, basic kicks. You see the movement, you know what it is. When the person is doing a high snap kick, you know, and then having their hand up here to kick it, so you train yourself to kick high, you know what you're doing. So for, you know, a young kid, they know, like, this is a kick, I'm kicking. And they know what to do with the kick. You aim your foot and you aim it at the other guy and hit him with it. You throw a punch, wham, you know what that's for. You know, you just throw the punch, you know what it's for. But now imagine trying to teach a young kid something like Tai Chi Chuan. They're not going to know what the single whip is for, not at first glance. You know, or like I'm going to teach like Bagua Zhang. Imagine me trying to teach him like the first or second or third palms of Bagua Zhang. Even if it's something as simple as the new form, which Zheng Rong Qiao taught, which is actually a pretty good form to teach somebody in the beginning. But a young kid's not going to know what they're doing. I mean, they'll be able to mimic the movements pretty well. But then, okay, now use it to fight. Huh? What? What's this for? They don't know what it's for. So, like, certain arts are not necessarily for certain ages. And the same can be true for an older adult. You're not going to be teaching Muay Thai to a 50-year-old. Ain't going to happen. I don't care how fit that guy is. There's a reason why certain Muay Thai champions in the ring, they don't make it past 20-something, 25. Like, once they reach 25, 26, it's time to retire. Your body can only take so much abuse. You know, it's certain like hard arts that are all about, you know, really just slamming your limbs into them. You can't really do that. This is why the older guys gravitate toward the so-called internal arts, because the training for them, it's not as severe. It's still tough if you're doing it properly, but at least you don't have to worry about breaking something. You know, or at least their bodies will be able to handle those movements. You know, arts where you're not kicking high, arts where you're not really like stretching way past, you know, the usual limits of somebody with tighter tendons. You know, stuff like that would be better for an older person. For a younger person that's able to do it, yeah, you can teach them in long fist or taekwondo or whatever. And those arts are a little bit more straightforward, so they understand what they're doing. All right, I'm repeating myself now, but I think you guys get what I'm saying. All right. Let's see if there's any other questions that I can kind of get into here. Let's see. Have I ever hurt myself while using a sword? This comes from Web. Once. Once I hurt myself. This was way back. Dumb kid. 16 years old. Haven't been properly trained yet, but I desperately wanted to learn how to use the Chinese sword. I was attracted to them even then. And so I went and bought myself one of those Long Chuan knockoffs. You know, the ones that you can buy for around 45, 30 bucks. It was actually a pretty well-made blade for what it was, you know, but it's not something I'd take into battle, I'll tell you that much. But it was well-made, solidly built, didn't rattle, whatever. And I'm trying to learn this basic form, teach myself this basic form with it. And I was doing okay, but I was trying to do a motion where you kind of like go like this, and I kind of did it a little too fast and nicked my thigh with the tip of the blade. Thankfully, I didn't like, you know, really skewer myself in the damn thing, but I nicked myself just enough to go, oh shit. And I think the fact that I was wearing jeans kind of saved me from going any deeper than that. But yeah, that was the one time I hurt myself using one of these things. Thankfully, that is the only time I've ever hurt myself using these things. I pretty much like, I make sure like, you know, I think one of the things that kind of kept me from really severely hurting myself with these weapons, even when I first didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I was whipping them around, is the fact that I've always kind of had a healthy respect for weapons. I mean, when you're swinging around something that's sharp, you kind of have to be mindful of what you're doing. But also, I was the kid that was always, you know, when I was a little kid, I was always the one running around with sticks in my hand, waving them all around. You kind of get used to swing, like if you're constantly running around playing sword fighting with other kids and, you know, swinging sticks and stuff like that.
No.
After a while, you just get used to having something long in your hand and being able to move around your body without hurting yourself with it. And, you know, a sword, for, you know, for all intents and purposes, for all the value we put to it and all the mystique that we put onto it, it's pretty much a metal stick, guys. I mean, it's a metal sharp stick. I know that's oversimplifying things, and of course you don't employ it like a stick, like, you know, just beat somebody in the head over it. But at the end of the day, it's just this long stick-like object. If you can, you know, pick up a broomstick or something like that and whip it around without hurting yourself, there's no reason for you to be able to hurt yourself if you pick up one of these, other than maybe if the weight's different or you're not used to it. But after just getting used to the weight a little bit, you should be able to, as long as you're not doing anything stupid and you don't lose confidence in yourself and lose track of what you're doing, you should be fine. And yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of sad to me that some of the things that I've done with, sorry guys, with this sucker over here, which is my baby. And this thing is, you know, you guys have seen how sharp this one is.
No.
There have been people who have commented that they're shocked that I'm able to do things like, you know, the cloud sword formations with this without hurting myself. And that makes me like raise an eyebrow. It's like, people do this with batons. People do this with, you know, sticks and stuff like that, and nobody says anything about that. But suddenly, just because this one is sharp, oh my God, you're gonna hurt yourself. There's nothing inherent about its sharpness that means that I'm automatically in bigger danger of hitting myself with it. I mean, I'm in bigger danger of being more damaged if I hit myself with it. But the actual fact of hitting myself has more to do with lack of confidence in my ability to use it and lack of, you know, focus on me whipping it around. If I can whip a stick around without hitting myself, there's no reason why I should, you know, there's no reason why I should be able to use that without hurting myself either. So yeah, there's that. That's more of an answer than you probably were looking for, but that's just something that's kind of bothered me a little bit when people sometimes see me whip that around, like, whoa. Okay, actually a general question that I think, what kind of percentage of the comments on my videos do I usually read, and at what age of a video do I stop bothering? That's actually a good question. It's actually something that I've been recently wanting to kind of get into a little bit, because lately I've been getting people making comments on videos that are like from 2008, 2009, and they expect me to answer, and I'm like, really? I read all comments. I'm gonna just tell you guys that right now. Don't ever, even if I don't necessarily answer you, there was a time I used to answer almost every comment that was sent to me, and I miss those days, because every time you guys leave a comment, I do appreciate it. It's just these days with me being tired and me being so stressed out because of lack of money and then me doing 12-hour shifts and working desperately, I don't always have the time or the focus to get every comment or question. And I've regretted that, because there have been some really good questions for the past couple of months that I have not addressed. And I apologize to anybody who has not had that question answered. But I do read every comment. I really do. And I am going to try to get back to certain questions, you know, at some point. But I think that after about 3 years, that's sort of like my cutoff point for video. And I'm just speaking generally. I mean, there's been some videos older than that I've gotten a comment on, and depending on the comment, if I felt it was worth responding to, like it was something rather relevant or something really interesting, I might go back to it. But let's just put it this way. If it's an old freaking video of mine and you're commenting on it as if, you know, it's still relevant now, like you're responding to it as if I just put it out yesterday, I'm probably not going to comment. In fact, one of my pet peeves is somebody kind of like responding to a video that was done ages ago, and I have later videos where I've updated my stance on it and they still act on the older video. It's like, look at my channel. I'm still putting out videos now. You might want to see if I said anything else in the subject later. You know? In fact, for a while, one of the things that made me grit my teeth was several people going, you need to stop putting music in your videos.
No.
I stopped putting music in my videos years ago. Look at the date of the video then look at my latest one to see if I'm still doing it before you make a freaking comment. Oh boy.
Pay no attention to the time of release. It's something you have to go out and look for on these damn things.
Well, okay, yeah, I understand that okay. I will, throw a bone here and say, yeah, YouTube has changed so freaking much that lately it's hard to even be able to tell when a new video came out, my son's causing problems. Family life. But, I mean, look, okay, I'm going under one of my videos right now. My Dark Souls 2 New Game Plus run, right? And, okay, there's the title. Yeah, look, you know what? I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna be a little bit of an asshole before I go to my next question. I'm gonna be one of those guys. I am sorry. Let's see. Is this the one? Yeah, that's the one. I'm gonna share this with you guys. Can you see this screen right now? This is Dark Souls 2 New Game Plus run.
Yeah.
Okay. Here, the minute we go to the page and you click on the video, all you gotta do is just this. That's all you gotta do. Just that little scroll down. Here's the title. There's my channel name. And oh my God, what is this? What's over here? What's right here? Oh my God, it's the date it came out. It doesn't take much. just spend at least a second to look at when the video came out before you make a comment. Now, having said that, I'm not trying to dissuade people from leaving comments under older videos because I know that I've put out so many videos that to think that a new person or somebody who just showed up like a year ago or a couple of months ago, to think that somebody who just showed up, especially the people who showed up because of Schologrim, expecting them to watch every single last one of my videos is just insane. No, that's really stupid to require of anybody, especially since a lot of my older videos I don't even think are all that good. So if they do decide to stumble on some of my older videos and then they hear something that they didn't know I had that thought on, they might be like, oh wow, I didn't know he thought that. He hasn't talked about that lately. Maybe I should leave a comment under here to see if he responds. I can understand that. And depending on what the comment is, if it's something that I find, rather interesting or, it stimulates my thinking or whatever, and it's obvious that you can't really get, an answer anywhere else, or I didn't address it in another video, I will go back to it and respond to that comment. Just as long as it's not a dumb comment or as long as it's not assuming, especially if later videos I either change my mind or, the stance is completely different or, like in the case of the music thing, like, criticizing me for something I'm no longer doing. You do stuff like that, then yeah, I'm not going to respond. But if it's more like asking me my opinion on something or bringing a new aspect on something about an older video that I didn't think about at the time, then yeah, I'm going to respond to it. Because, just because it's old doesn't necessarily mean it's not relevant. It's a balancing act, I guess, with it. Like, trying to figure out, like, even though it's an older video, is there still something about it that makes people still want to touch on it today? And, also keep in mind that an older video, I might come back to that topic at some point. Like, there's a lot of older atheist-style videos that I have been planning on coming back to at some point to add an extra aspect to it. So expect those. Parker asked a question that I think I should have gotten into earlier. Parker8752. Do I have advice for people who want to learn an internal art, for lack of a better terminology, while avoiding the bullshit? I hate to tell you this, Parker, but I'm planning on making another video about the reasons why there's so much BS in internal arts. But to kind of keep things short for now, especially since I'm running out of time, a lot of the BS these days is just kind of interwoven in it, and you're just going to have to take some of it. A lot of the people who taught it back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, people like Sun Wukong and other people like him, wove a lot of philosophical stuff that some people have taken way out of proportion, and it's just part of the culture now. It's going to be, even like somebody who's, like a good example I can give is like a Yang Ming. Yes. Is an excellent, and this is going to answer a question for a lot of people. Some people have been asking me, what do I think about Yang Ming? So if you happen to be here watching this right now, I'm finally answering you, and I apologize for not answering this earlier. I think Yang Ming is an excellent martial arts teacher. If you look at the materials he's come out with, if you look at how he teaches, it's obvious that he knows what he's talking about. He knows how to make it work, and he can explain it in a fashion that tells you that he knows what he's talking about. The only problem with him, and I just say problem because it's just, you know, a pet peeve of mine, is that he also still believes a lot of the BS about how martial arts were formed. Like, you'll still find books and stuff of his where he says, oh yeah, this originated in Shaolin Temple. No, it didn't. You know, stuff like that. You know, like when I read stuff like that, my teeth start to grind. But when you realize that so many martial artists still believe that it's how they were taught, you know, it's one of those things that you're just going to have to let it slide. You know, you just got to let it slide. But he's an excellent freaking teacher, and he happens to be one of those guys that teaches Tai Chi Chuan as a combat art. If you look at, like, and he's one of those people who's like, first and foremost, he says outright, first and foremost, this is a martial art. You use it to defend yourself, okay? You're not, yes, you do it slow and you practice. Yes, it's for health, enlightenment, you build up chi. But at the end of the day, you need to use it to fight. You can't use it to fight. It's not a martial art. It's useless. And he teaches it that way. Having said that, you will catch little things here and there about, you know, it originating Wudon or whatever, or it came from Zhen Feng. And yes, that's BS, but at least he's teaching some proper knowledge. So if I'm going to be giving any advice to somebody who wants to learn an internal martial art, see if the combat aspect is being taught. That's what you need to look for. And I'm not just simply talking about, oh yeah, you can use, like, you will bump into the person who, if all they're talking about is how, yes, Tai Chi is used for enlightenment, Tai Chi is used for health. If that's all they're saying and you're looking for it to be taught the proper way, you're going to want to look elsewhere. And some of them will, you know, throw you off a little bit. They'll say, oh, yes, yeah, it is a martial art, by the way. You can use it to fight. But they do these really kind of like stilted, scripted ways of demonstrating how it's done. And there's no real, like, you can tell this guy's never really used the thing in a combat set. Yeah, then leave. Like, you know, when you look at someone like Yang Jingming, when he demonstrates Tai Chi, you can think, oh, wow, that hurt. You can tell the guy knows how to use it to fight.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them. Just one thing don't mean to butt in, but one thing that I've noticed, especially in the U.S., a lot of people teaching the Eastern martial arts, the things that they show for youth in combat are just absolutely horrible. The guys that hit him once and then just do 15 different things while the guy just stands there and does nothing. Nothing. Or teaching you things that are going to get you hurt or killed.
Yeah.
And those, I think I came up with a pretty good term for those westernized, bastardized versions of what used to be practical Eastern arts. I call them Yankarati. And I think that's pretty fitting.
Okay, you need to say that one more often so it gets used more often.
Well, I just came up with it a couple of days, but yeah, you use it. Anybody who listens here, feel free to spread the word.
Spread it on the internet. That's something I would love to see, that phrase spread on the internet. Okay. I'm lingering on this question a little bit too long, but one thing I want to kind of put in to give you an idea of, like, many of these so-called the fact that we're calling them internal arts right away speaks of marketing. Ancient, well, it's not that ancient anymore, but old marketing. Notice that these so-called external arts do not market themselves as external arts. They're just arts. They're just gong fu. They're just, it's just martial arts. When you go to, this is the external, this is my style. It's baji. You use it to punch people through walls. That's what we do. That's how they advertise it. And that's what you're going to do. But you suddenly want to learn Tai Chi. This is the internal art. The external guys do not come up with any extra BS titles for what they do, because they know what their art is for. It's for knocking people out. I mean, yeah, we use it for other reasons. And I'm not saying, again, I need to stress that if you're using it for if you're training it for any other reason, that's cool. I have nothing against that. You got to remember, I'm into philosophy too. It's one of my favorite things to engage in. And I do like thinking about the deeper aspects of these martial arts. And one of these days I should get into a video about that. But you still need to be able to use it. Even if you're not planning on using it, you still need to be able to use it. Otherwise, why are you training in it? Why are you wasting your time? I'm thinking it's kind of insulting the art to like train it in a half-assed way. So many people died to develop the techniques that it now has. And these internal arts, these so-called internal arts, people don't seem to realize how many people died to make. Shigi was based on spear techniques. One of the greatest people who learned how to use it was murdering MFs, you know, in like one-on-one duels. They had to throw his ass in jail. And then when he got out, he was even more badass than he was before he got in. These people, you know, these are arts that, you know, literally they bet their lives on. Sometimes they lost, many times they won. And they left a lot of broken bodies behind them. You know, and even developing the techniques, they went through hell. So to think of that history and to then go, this is not for fighting, is spitting on that history. It really is, in my particular opinion. The stuff that I've learned about what these, you know, some of these masters of these arts went through, what they've done with their skills, how those skills develop, will surprise a lot of people. Like for instance, Tai Chi, again, that came from Chen Village. You know, there was a recorded battle about a bunch of bandits who tried to raid Chen Village, and they chased those guys out. And one of the leaders of the bandits, they knocked him off his horse and cut his freaking head off. I'm not making that up. And again, these were the guys who knew Tai Chi. They weren't one of these bandits coming in, we are now going to go with the flow. They cut his freaking head off. They dragged the motherfucker from his horse. And again, you need weapons to do that. So obviously they know how to use weapons too. These were effective, brutal arts. They weren't just there for dance and they weren't there for show. So if nowadays you're trying to learn these arts and all the guy is doing is teaching you stuff like how to blend yoga in with your meditation, he's not teaching it to you properly. He's not. I'm sorry, but he's not. So, yeah, I've gone on that one way, way too long. But that's my main advice. See if the combat aspect is still there. See if they're still they're not wasting most of their time on just simply breathing and meditating and moving slow. If you're actually training to use it, you're using it to develop power. You're learning what the moves are for, and you can demonstrate it in a combat context without the person just standing there waiting for you to do it to them. Yep. If the art is being taught that way, you're on the right track.
Yeah. One quick last thing. Is it a martial art or just a physical art? It's Tai Chi and all that. The spiritual ones are less a martial and just more physical. If it pertains that it is a martial art and they can show that it is martial, then there you go.
All right, I'm running a little bit out of time, so I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as, because there's several other questions that I haven't touched on. How did I meet my wife? I'm going to go through that really quickly, and before I go into the other ones. I've known her since '99, and I met her online. I've actually talked about this before, but not everyone's heard the story. You guys all know I'm a nerd, okay? Major nerd. And one of the things I am really into is Star Wars. Yeah, believe it or not. So yes, I was highly disappointed with the prequels, but we don't need to go there. There was a website that I used to go to. It no longer exists. It was called the Jedi Academy. It was a message board with a lot of people who basically talked philosophy and aspects of life and all that type of stuff with a Star Wars background. It was almost like role-playing without role-playing, if that makes any sense. And she used to be part of that board, and we knew each other that way. Now, I'd known her for a long time before we actually hooked up romantically. But again, I'd known her since '99, and we used to go to that message board and just chat and stuff. And I used to chat with her on MSN Messenger back when MSN Messenger was still a thing. And that's pretty much, how I've known her. And then one day while I was living in Cali, she decided what the hell she wanted to come out and meet me. And that's pretty much how we hooked up. One thing led to another, and now we're married. That's pretty much how I met her. Not much of the story, but it's a cool story in my opinion. Veb. Actually, I think is an important question. Veb asked me if he has a fully functional sword, but it's blunt because your mom is crazy afraid you're going to hurt yourself. Do you think it's worth it to get it sharpened without telling her so you can test cut it and such? No. Don't do anything that's going to get you in trouble with your mom, man. No. Look,
depending on the edge, you probably can't even do it without really screwing it up. I have a saber that is blunt that I thought about getting it sharpened, and when I talked to a guy who made it, he said he'd basically have to reforge the thing to give it an edge. Because if it's a blunt, like a live steel combat weapon, you're not going to be able to just put it to whetstone and sharpen it out. You're going to need to either reforge it or put it on a grinder, and the grinder's probably going to mess up the temper.
possibly,
So it's not going to do it any good. It's just going to screw your sword up.
Yeah, and besides, even if it didn't, when you're on your own, yeah, do whatever you want. But there is no reason for you to possibly put yourself in trouble with your mom, who, I mean, yeah, I know you're saying that she's crazy and all that, and she's afraid you're going to hurt yourself, but she's your mom. Of course she's going to be worried about your welfare. Test cutting is something that you do when you're already comfortable with the weapon and you already have an idea of how to employ basic techniques. Test cutting is something that you do to refine what you already know. If you don't already know how to use a sword, there's no reason to rush into test cutting yet. Unless you're just like, those backyard cutters who all they want to do is just chop stuff up in their backyard and they just chop up bottles, and they really don't really have much of an interest to learn how to use a sword. Okay, then that's fine. And if that's the category you're in, okay, that's fine. But your mom don't want you to do it. Don't do it behind her back, man. No, just don't. Maybe you can talk to her about it. Maybe you can say how about you can stay in the backyard and watch me or something. I'm not saying that's going to work. If she's putting her foot down on that, just wait till you move out the house. But that's my advice. Don't get yourself in trouble with your mom. There's no reason for that. What else? That's just about time, but I'm just going to try to go through these last couple of questions. I don't want to leave anybody behind. So let's see. What's this? Oh. What is actually? I'm going to save Jake C. Wolf's question for last. I didn't even notice that one. Agree with, but I find it interesting in the conversation with him. Oh, not me, but for another. This came up like 11 minutes ago. So there's a perspective on the whole internal-external thing that I don't necessarily agree with, but find interesting, which is that in addition to the rotation around the hip axis, almost every martial art uses to generate power because it's like internal styles generate power basically by using the stance and body mechanics to translate a vertical push against the ground to a horizontal force against the opponent, while external styles only push off the ground diagonally to create rotation. So you've mostly seen it coming from the Hawkins Shung Wing Chun line, which obviously very much influenced by Tai Chi Chuan. Is this total BS, or there could be something to it? I'm not going to say it's total BS, but this is once again the type of stereotypical, superficial thinking they have of other martial arts when they don't really see how it works. Again, some arts do try to generate power a bit differently, but all of them do the rotation, like you pointed out before. All of them do the rotation from the hip axis. But as far as pushing off the ground, to translate a vertical push against the ground to a horizontal force, I've seen that in so many different styles. If external styles only push off the ground diagonally, how do you explain Baji? How do you explain Baji Chuan? That whole thing, the main way to develop power besides the rotation of the waist is stamping the ground. And the last time I checked, when they do that stamp on the ground and then throw out a blow, that blow's going out straight horizontally. And that blast sends people flying. I mean, you've played Virtua Fighter. You know what Baji can do. Okay, granted, the game does exaggerate a bit, but you really do send people flying with that style. That's what it's made for. You propel the guy away from you and cave in his chest with a blow or, with a punch or an elbow. And they do it with that bang. They generate power from stamping the ground, and at the same time they're thrusting, they're sending that energy horizontally straight into the opponent while they're rotating the hips. And that's, last time I checked, no one was calling Baji Chuan an internal art. Far from it. There's nothing slow or soft looking about that style. So again, I'm thinking this whole thing of, they only do it this way. This is once again the type of usual superficial knowledge that people tend to think about all the other arts. Well, they only do it this way, but they don't practice it, or they don't research how it's done, so they can just come up with, they just, like the way somebody, for instance, said boxing is just, it's just a thuggish, simplistic art. There's no, all they do is just throw punches, and there's nothing, there's no real complexity behind it. Anybody who really appreciates what boxing does knows that's bullshit. But if you don't practice it and you're not really interested in seeing what it's all about, then you can come up with dumbass theories like that. So, yeah. Real quick, Donna Telangelo, who's been around for quite some time on my channel. Hey, what's up? So one of my thoughts on Filipino martial arts are arts like Salat. I think those arts are really cool at close range. They got some really good hand motions that I think they translate very well to modern fighting styles. Those guys always tended to work with like short weapons like sticks or knives, which is close range type stuff anyway, and the way they translate that to bare hand movement is fascinating. I tend to really like those particular arts, and I love seeing those in action. What's my opinion on Roman swords? This came from What I Wish Could Play. I think they're decent weapons for what they are, but I don't know too much about them, to be perfectly honest with you. I know that they were made to be like short thrusting swords, and the way the Roman legions worked, that really works very well with how they train to fight. But other than that, I don't know too much about them, but I think they're decent enough weapons. Not necessarily something
Yeah, they are very good. I have two of them, actually. One sharp, one blunt. The blunt one has a sharp tip, and that thing, I would not want to get hit by that. It outthrusts most every sword I have. They're very, very good at stabbing, and they can still cut relatively well. They're not as long as, say, the swords of the Northerners, like the the Gauls. But for close range combat with the big shield, just get in there and just grind everybody down. It works perfect for that. It is the perfect sword for their style. Just like the katana works really, really good for how the Japanese had to use it.
Huh. Well, yeah, you would know more about that than I would. You should do something on that sometime.
Sure,
kind of like the different, like how the weapons complement the way the actual armies fought. A lot of people don't really think about the fact that many of these people who trained in martial arts to use certain weapons, they weren't fighting one-on-one duels. They were fighting as a group, and the weapons they were using worked with that particular style of fighting. But people these days think only one-on-one. So.
And the Roman Spatha, which is based on the Gallic longer swords, those don't quite work for how the Romans were wanting to use it. How the gladius, it doesn't have the reach to be used on horseback, hence why they adopted the Spatha for that. And later, after the reforms, they started using the long cutting of the Spatha versus the short thrusting of the gladius.
Huh.
So when the styles changed, so did the weapons. It's just how things go.
You need to do something like that. You need to do a series on that, man. That would be cool.
And the Romans actually adopted that from the Celtiberians. They originally fought like the Greek hoplites, but the Samnites whipped them hard in the mountains, so they had to change. Terrain also has an effect on how you fight and your weapons. So there's a lot of things to consider.
Oh man, I'm looking through so many other different actually there aren't that many questions I left behind. I think there's only a couple more left, but I'm getting over time. Let's see. I just lost that one. Favorite Kung Fu movie? I got too many favorites, but the one that's sticking in my hand right now, probably Legendary Weapons of China. That movie is insane. I love almost everything by Lau Kao-liang. I love his films because he tried so much to put real Kung Fu in the movies while at the same time still throwing in the theatrical. And the fight scenes in his movies are always insane. But Legendary Weapons of China, I like a lot, not only because of the choreography, but the story itself is pretty interesting. And it touches on an actual historical event in China. It's focusing on the Boxer Rebellion and the different cults and superstitions and BS that was going on behind it and how it wove into martial arts. Really interesting movie for that. And in fact, you know what? You guys watching this right now, there's something that I've been thinking about doing, and I want to leave it to you guys to tell me if it's something that you'd be interested in. I have been seriously considering every now and then, this is not something I want to like focus on, but every now and then, kind of like doing a review of some of my favorite kung fu movies, and mostly touching on not just the usual stuff like, is it a good plot, does it suck or not, but also on how the martial arts themselves are being portrayed in those movies. I've been thinking about doing that for the past couple of months, but I'm not too sure how that would come off, or if you guys would actually appreciate that on the channel. If it's something you guys would appreciate, let me know. If there's something you want to see in it, let me know. If you think I should just leave it to rest, let me know. But it's something I've been thinking about. And if I was going to do it, the first movie I probably would do is Legendary Weapons of China, because it's one of my favorite movies. Let's see. If I was stuck in a desert island with one non-fire weapon, what would it be? I think the answer for that is already... It would be my good old sword, I guess.
I'd go with a spear.
Well, a spear would be more practical, but...
Because hunting with the sword is going to be quite tricky, whereas spear hunting, not so much.
Well, the spear I can always make. See, if I was stuck on a one weapon that was already forged, I'd pick a sword. And if I needed a spear, I just take a rock, kind of, sharpen it a bit, put it to the end of a stick. There you go.
Well, a hunting knife, actually, you could turn that into a spear much easier. And flint napping is very, 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 very difficult. Having to hit a rock with the rock at the right angle, with the right power to chip it just right is not easy.
And let's see. Okay, so I'm thinking that's probably going to be, because I'm not seeing any other new ones. Gonna have to split. It's 10 minutes over. I've answered pretty much all the pertinent questions. The one person asked me what's my favorite type of pizza. Believe it or not, just plain old cheese. I mean, I will eat the other stuff, the meat pizzas, but plain old cheese pizza is my favorite. That with peppers on it. I am the nut that will eat a jalapeno pepper in one bite and then munch on the pizza with the other bite. Doesn't faze me. In fact, jalapenos are not really all that hot, guys. They're not. Try habaneros or ghost peppers. Those are hot. Jalapenos, the red pepper flakes that you can put on pizzas, they're not that hot either. In fact, they really taste good on pizzas. And then someone asked me, do I like guinea pigs? Never had a pet guinea pig, so I don't know. They look
They're
cute.
pretty sweet, except you can't have them in your room because they chew all night.
Oh.
They're nocturnal. But they're really, really sweet. They're like giant hamsters.
Okay.
And they're funny and sweet, and sometimes you can get them, and they've got these funny little cowlicks or whatever, and their fur just goes all different ways.
Mm-hmm.
But they're super cute, and they're really sweet. Like,
all right.
They have more personality than a hamster.
I would think they were bigger.
But I mean, they're like this big, and you give them, vegetables and stuff as treats, and they're. I like guinea pigs.
All right. Well, she likes guinea pigs.
I liked my ferret though. My ferret was awesome.
It would be cool to have a ferret, but then again, we got the cats. I don't think they get along. Anyway, okay. This has gone on long enough.
Actually, they might.
Maybe. For those guys who were able to make it to the hangout, I appreciate it. Thank you very much, guys. For the Patreon guys, if you missed my message and weren't able to get in because of that, I apologize. Or I am planning on doing another one for next month, though that depends on whether I still have a roof over my head next month. Yeah. But I'm going to try to get things going for next month. Hopefully do another, because I've been wanting to do this since January, but every time I kept trying, things went wrong. Things went wrong tonight, but I was able to make it work. Those of you who would like to be able to join a hangout like this later on, like I said, the Patreon guys are able to come in like Demo Man was. So hopefully we can do something like that again. And yeah, when I turn this off, I am probably going to try to finish editing that Dark Souls 2 video that I wanted to do, and then there was another more serious video I wanted to do, so expect that to come out soon. So thank you guys for being part of this. I appreciate your questions. I plan on doing it again soon. Till then, catch you guys later and have a good night.
Good night.